Welcome to Home Education Matters, the weekly podcast supporting you on your home education journey. Hello and welcome to another episode of Home Education Matters, and today I'm joined for episode 6 of A Journey into Home Education with Ash and Ismael, actually. And maybe towards the end of the year we should drag Ismael onto the podcast and then he can give us like a one-word response, like, how has your year been in home education? All right.
Yeah, that's exactly what you'd get as well.
Of course, that's what all children would say. But thank you so much for joining me again for episode 6. And Ash, tell us how February has been. It's obviously a short month, but tell us how it's been for you.
It is a short month, and we took a week off for kind of our half term. So we decided to just take a week off to break from formal learning, I suppose. So he had a break from his tutor. I think what's really helped for me, anyway, from my point of view, is having somebody else to kind of share the burden with, or share the kind of like responsibility with. So with regards to maths specifically, nothing else, but with maths I've got somebody else who I can kind of spitball ideas with, and just kind of like decide where it smells, just assessing him and kind of moving forward with what he's learning, and kind of having a different face for him as well. It's, I think, quite beneficial sometimes when it comes to learning concepts. Some days he might be like, absolutely no, I can't bother with me, but he'll do it for somebody else. So that's been really helpful. And so it's a combination, because I still work with him on maths on 3 other days of the week, but just having that 2 days with the tutor kind of just relieves some of the pressure. So that's been really good from my point of view, because I was getting really overwhelmed by that kind of December, beginning of January time. So it's really been helpful. And with regards to everything else, it's actually just like clicking into place a little bit, because naturally his interests are going down a way where I can kind of just quite easily incorporate them into things that are official, like learning. So right now, at the moment, one of the things that he's really interested in, we haven't started yet. It's funny because we were talking about video editing just a little while ago, and he's really interested in YouTubing. So he wants to do like a speed run. I don't know if you know what this is or not, but it's when you go through a game really, really quickly. But he wants to speed run a Mario or something like that. And he's been practicing, but he wants to record it, and he wants to edit it, and then he wants to kind of put it out there in the world on YouTube or whatever he uses. So I think my mindset has changed a lot, whereas initially, like kind of maybe last year, I would be like, that's a waste of time. Like, why are you doing that? That's just, that's just more screen time, etc. I think more now we've kind of embraced that a little bit. We're getting in the kind of equipment that he needs to be able to do that, and then working with him and teaching him how to edit and be able to kind of post those videos. And there's so many elements to that, aren't there? There's like presenting, writing a script, and all those things that he's going to need as a life skill. All of those things will be incorporated within this project. So I like that he's leading that, and he has no idea that it's anything to do with school or home educating or anything. He just thinks I'm supporting him in his quest to become a YouTuber. So yeah, so those sorts of things are really falling into place, which is really nice. And in other areas as well, his interests, we're able to follow them a lot more than, I guess, when I was being very structured and, oh no, we've got to do an hour of maths, or we've got to do an hour of this. So that flexibility has allowed him to kind of show me where to go, kind of lead the way a little bit.
I remember right from early on, I think it was our first episode together, when you told me about Ismael setting up a lemonade stand. Yeah. And I remember thinking then, he's like a perfect home educated child, because he... when he has a passion, he really like flies into it, and he really immerses himself in it and incorporates lots of learning into it. So I get the impression that this is something that you're now really beginning to see the benefits of as you go through.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think with any child, and I know this, the largest battle is getting them engaged, isn't it? And getting them interested in what they're doing. So if he's leading that, he's doing all the hard work himself, and then I can just kind of facilitate as opposed to lead, which is the best way for it anyway. So I think that's great from that point of view. I think him taking that ownership has really been helpful, and we found kind of a new rhythm, I think, which is good. Kind of like, I think we've settled into a good rhythm now with him, where it doesn't feel so forced, or kind of let's sit down and get the books out now, which we do have to do sometimes, but like on the days that he really doesn't want to do it, we will kind of adapt and do other things, and then kind of just do extra on some other days. It's not that timetable that I made right at the beginning of September when you knew, you were like, it's going to go out the window, or my color coded everything. Yeah, that is true. It has gone out the window, absolutely. But I think that's because the power shift has changed. I think before it was me trying to kind of control everything and try to make it the way that I needed it to be for me to feel, I guess, better about it, for me to feel like I'm doing the right thing. Whereas now I think we've shifted a little bit, and I'm trusting him to kind of lead, and I'm trying to just kind of support in the areas that he will need support in. So that's a big shift that I've had to go through, and has actually worked really well.
I think that's one thing I noticed in the last episode that we did together as well last month, was that your trust in him and his learning has really increased. And I also get the impression that your trust and your faith in yourself and the process of home education has also increased.
Yeah, it's weird though, because I think I feel as though life is so much easier than it was last year. But that's only because not everyone will have had this experience, although a lot of people will have done. But just the mental stress of, not on me, just on Ismael, of getting him into school, of him having to deal with all the things in school that he was struggling with. And then, I was struggling with doing homework with him, which is basic. In primary school, it's not massive reams and reams of homework, but that's what made me doubt myself, thinking that I'm not going to be able to get him to do this. But when the pressure has come off from school, I think he's more open to these sorts of things, and the things that, especially when it doesn't look like formal learning, he's very much more engaged. So yeah, I think that I do trust myself more. I trust him more as well, to kind of be able to tell me where he wants to go with it.
Yeah, and I hear this so often that parents say, oh, well, I can't even get them to do their homework, so I'd never be able to home educate. And it is a really different thing, isn't it? It's very different, that sort of half an hour at the end of a school day, to when you've got them there all the time and you're able to take these interests. Like becoming a YouTuber is such a classic thing. It's like our modern day being a footballer or something, isn't it? Or being a pop star. But there's so many learning opportunities in something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really important, that's the difference, because I think, what you were saying about just like, oh, I can't homeschool my children or home educate my children because I can't do the homework with them. The pandemic didn't help with that either, when schools were sending work home and everyone's like, well, my kids didn't listen to me in that time. I was really struggling with that. That was really difficult. But if the planning is your planning, if you're planning the things, I think that's a completely different approach to it, isn't it? As opposed to doing the work that's being set for the children in a very school, I guess, yeah, a school focused way. It's very different to kind of leading it yourself. So I think anyone can do it, and I think it's a massive relief. I think this year's been a good breather for us, for sure.
And I think, carry on.
No, but on Friday, we find out about secondary schools, because it's 1st of March. So that's a day that I'm kind of still dreading a little bit, because we'll see what happens with that and how he feels about secondary school at that point.
So I don't know anything about this having not been in the school system, but so you apply for like a whole swathe, do you? And then you find out on Friday which ones you got? Is that how it works? A bit like university, is it?
Well, exactly. So you basically will apply. It's just like primary school applications, but obviously you won't know about that either, because you haven't had to do that. But you'll just apply with your local authority. You'll put you'll have 3 choices. You'll put your list down of choices. We've only put 2 down, and then they will tell you. So that was in a kind of November time, I think, was a deadline, and then they tell you on the 1st of March. But in my area, they do it. I don't know if that's a national thing or not, but yeah. So you'll find out if your name has come out of the hat for you to be in the school that they think you should be in. But I think, so Ismael's got very mixed opinions on that. I think one part of him is very kind of nervous about it, but understandably, because it's a new school. Even children who haven't left the education system will be nervous about starting secondary school, and it's a big transition anyway from year 6 to 7, particularly in schools that go from year 6 in a different school to a bigger school in year 7. But then partly there is the kind of I think he's looking forward to it. I think he's actually quite, at the moment, because I think whatever he's visualized is quite positive for him. Not because he doesn't like this. He loves home educating, because it's such a relaxed timetable. He can get up a lot later than he normally would, and all those sorts of things which are really important to him. And I think they're important to most people if you think about flexible working and things like that. But that's really important to him. But I think in his mind, I think he has an image of what it's going to be like, and I think he's looking forward to it, but not in a way that he's excited. I think he's just kind of, it's one of those things that he's accepted he's going to do. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting as we get closer how that looks for him, and whether that changes his mind, or how just that progress into that will be interesting interesting. I say, I think it'll be quite stressful, but we'll see what happens.
Does he have one of the two schools that he particularly wants to go to?
So the one that he wants to go to, so we went and had a look around schools in December, in November time, October time, whenever they were doing their look arounds. And we looked at two schools, the ones that are the local area schools, I suppose. One of them is my old secondary school, but obviously that was many years ago. And he really liked that one. And it's the closest one to us. And I guess it's the one that a lot of the schools from a lot of the children from the school that he was in will be ending up in as well, because it's it's not a feeder school, but it's close enough for that to happen. So that's why he went for that one as his first choice. And the second choice was something else in the area. But as I was looking around, I think it really strikes you when you've been out of the system for a little while, just how big the class sizes are, just how structured, and how rules are so rules, like things that don't really actually matter, like uniform, for example, and things that he's having a break from now. I think that will hit him quite hard when it comes to September. And I think a lot of family members who don't properly understand home educating, despite me trying to talk to them about it, will say things like, well, you only do 2 hours of learning a day, or 1 hour, however much formal learning is, because they won't see the other things as being learning. How are you going to get used to, how are you going to adapt to when you're going to be full-time in September? Make comments like that aren't helpful, really, obviously, are they? But I suppose that's something that will be in the back of his mind as well, and certainly is in the back of my mind from a stamina point of view, as to sitting down for sustained lengths of time to be able to complete a lesson and things like that. Ismail's probably like, when he gets fed up with something, he'll take a break and then he'll come back to it later. He is going to have to adjust, and he's only been out of the system for 6 months, as we were saying earlier on. It's been about 6 months. So that's going to be an interesting challenge for him if he decides to go back.
Yeah, my experience of secondary school from when I was briefly a foray in teaching was that every 45 minutes or 50 minutes they have to go from classroom to classroom, so they get that chance to get up and about, and there's absolutely no way that even the best pupils sat and concentrated for the entire lesson. That never happened. So when it comes to the actual work that he'll be doing, it will be really short little segments anyway. A lot of the start of the lesson is flannel, a lot of the end of the lesson is like assessment in inverted commas, but also kind of a bit of flannel. And then you have group work, which is lovely, but it's not that much different to home ed in lots of ways. So the actual sitting at his desk writing is not actually that much of the lesson. So I don't think it's something that, I think sometimes people talk about school like you have to kind of militarily prepare for it, like it's a marathon, or you got to build up your stamina to be able to cope with school. And you have to think, like, if it's that much of a nightmare, and if it's that hard for children to adapt to it, why are we putting them in there? Like, if it's that difficult for a 10-year-old to deal with it and an 11-year-old to deal with it, it's crazy.
But I feel that way. And I think my mind shift, being a primary school teacher up until kind of last year and end of last year, has completely shifted as well. So like it's difficult, because I'm very much like, no, let's stay home educated. Let's do all these fun things. And I think it's going to be, I have to, obviously, like we said earlier in one of the other podcasts, I'm going to have to follow his lead with it, because I don't want him to not have the opportunity if he wants the opportunity, but also I want him to know that there's a security, and if he wants to at some point go back to home educating, then that's going to be an option that's there for him as well. So, but then there's the balance of like, how long is, he's given it a good chance, because obviously it's going to be hard in the beginning. But that's the story.
I was gonna ask you that, actually. I mean, do you have a sense of like you need to give it at least half a term or anything like that?
So because we haven't actually spoken about it, so we've buried out, other than applying and having brief chats about it here and there, we have kind of buried our sand in it, our head in the sand with it. So I think as it approaches, when we find out on Friday, if it's Friday that we are supposed to find out on Friday, but there could be delays, and then we'll, I guess, start talking about it in a more kind of, this is actually going to happen way. And I guess we'll talk about, there's going to have to be some rules in place, because of course the first, I remember going to secondary school, and I remember the first half term I'd have all the anxiety symptoms. I loved it. I was actually enjoyed school, and I was actually with my people that I knew from primary school, so I had a support system with me going in. However, I still found because it's such a big place and so everything's so new, I would have like stomach cramps and anxiety just the first half term. So it takes a while to just settle in anyway, I think, even if you are feeling kind of happy with the situation. So we'll have to think about that and think about how we're going to know when it's time to pull the what's the parachute? What the cord for the parachute?
Ripcord. Is it ripcord?
Yeah.
You mentioned that you're kind of pretty happily settled into home educating as the parent. And I wondered whether this month you could let us know how you're finding the process. You as an individual, as a mother, as a person. You know, how are you finding being a home educator?
So I think there are pros and cons for sure. So I think obviously having Ismael at school or from school age, so kind of 4 or 5, however old they are, I've been used to kind of having that time, those 6 hours in the day or whatever, where I can focus on work. And obviously being a teacher previous to this, I was kind of, I was doing my own thing at work and not having to worry about somebody else at home. I mean, first thing I'd have to say is that our grocery bill has gone up significantly because I think we are all at home. We all work from home anyway, but I think it smells approaching that teen kind of age where they just eat all the time, don't they? My toddler eats all the time as well, so it's just one of those things. But yeah, so I think we're all at home all the time, and I think I'm with Ismael a lot more now. That's got its positives and its negatives as well. I think from a positive point of view, it's really nice to know what's going on in his life, and he's very close to me, probably closer than he was. He's more open to sharing things with me, and kind of our relationship has gotten even stronger. Not that it wasn't strong before, but it's even stronger. And it's nice to be able to see kind of the real him, because I feel as though he was masking so much last year at school that he'd be so exhausted when he was at home that we wouldn't really be able to get the humorous side of him all the time until we had a long holiday or something. So he is very quick-witted. His wits come back, not that it ever went, but he's still very quick-witted, and I'm seeing his real personality, which is amazing. So as a parent, that's really nice to be able to see and have that relationship with your child. There is obviously a lot more opportunity. There are a lot more opportunities for kind of arguments or fallouts or kind of things that can be tricky as well. There's not a break. I don't get the break to be able to say, okay, well, we can reset after we get back. So there is a lot of that. But remember, I've got a toddler as well, so that's both of them, not just Ismael. So I guess overall, overall, the 100%, his mental health has improved so much, and that's all you want for your children, is for them really to be happy, or to be at least, secure and just feeling safe, and from an emotional point of view, and that we've achieved. And from that point of view, I feel very kind of good. And the stress for me has massively reduced, because as I was saying, we had tears, tantrums, all sorts of things getting in school, and the emotional breakdown after school. So it's nice not to have those things. But yeah, obviously the pressure of all I say all the planning, there is work that goes into it, even if if Ismael's leading it, that is an extra thing that I wasn't doing before. But to me, the pros outweigh the cons for sure. So I think, yeah, it's been a really enjoyable and eye-opening journey for me.
And what about the social side? How has that been going?
We got stood up.
Oh my God. Yeah. It happens.
I've taken matters into my own hand now. So I've started. We're having a board game club that I've gotten people in that I've posted. I've arranged it. It's starting next Friday, so not this Friday. Next Friday, where we're going to be congregating in the community hall, a local community hall, with lots of board games and things. And we've had some interest. So I'm hoping people do turn up. Fingers crossed. I'm hoping people turn up. And we'll see how that goes. But I'm having to lead it myself, because I feel as though every time I've tried to do anything else, it's just not worked. So we will see how that. I will definitely update you next time on how that went, and we'll see.
One of our very first podcasts that we did was episode 2 was with Helen Royston, and it was kind of just getting started in home education episode. And one of the bits of advice she gave when it comes to the social aspect was, if it's not there already, set it up. And I think it's a brave thing, starting a home ed meetup, because as you've discovered from your one-to-one, lots of people say yeah, and then like lots of people then don't show up, and I always say it's a bit like herding cats, home educators, because home educators do tend to do their own thing. That's that's how we end up home educating a lot of the time. And so it's very difficult, to organize these meetups. But you're right, if it's not happening for you, then the best route is to set it up and see how it goes. And a board game club is exactly the kind of thing I would have wanted to do as well. I mean, it's such a nice opportunity for children to mix in a way that's reasonably structured, but allows them to talk to each other.
Absolutely, yeah, that's the idea. And I'm hoping people, because people say they'll turn up and then they don't turn up and all this. I'm hoping we do get some turn ups. So we'll see how it goes.
If the worst comes to the worst, it'll be you and Ismael playing chess or something, and
exactly.
It's not the worst. Yeah, exactly. We've all been there. I mean, I've attended sort of group 1 meetings that people have put a lot of effort into organizing. They said, we're expecting 30 families, and it's been me and the other mother. And I've also, I've gone to meetups where I was expecting, lots of people, and it's just been me and the children standing in the rain. And you factor it into the process, and it's a bit disappointing, and you take a big gulp and you're like, here we go. But then there's other ones where, you turn up and loads of people are there and it works really well. And it's just potluck. It's luck of the draw. So hopefully yours will be one of the lucky ones. I hope so.
Fingers crossed, yeah.
And what plans do you have for your next month? Because is it Easter next month, or is that Easter in April this year? I don't know.
What? Do you know what? I don't know. I think it is a really short half term. I think it's like a 4-week, 5-week half term. So it'll probably be towards the end of March. So we haven't actually planned anything for the actual holiday yet. So we haven't even thought about that really from that point of view. So with regards to learning, though, I think what's quite nice is I know that the year 6 children, which is the year that Ismael will be in at school, will be preparing for kind of SATs and things, which he's not having to do. So I think we're just going to continue what we're doing. Our big project this month is going to be his speed run and his YouTuber passion that he's got. So we're going to definitely follow that, continue with all the other things, the reading that we're doing and the books we're reading and the kind of the maths curriculum that we're kind of trying to stick to as much as possible so he doesn't fall too far behind. So yeah, I think that's our big project really.
Yeah, it sounds wonderful. And maybe by the time we catch up at the end of March, maybe if he's released his video, we can share it on the podcast, and then people can watch his speed run. That would be fun.
Yeah, he'd love that. Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you so much, Ash. It's been lovely catching up with you again, and we will see you at the end of March.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us for today's Home Education Matters podcast. See you at the next one. Have a lovely day.